directly to all of you. I think we prepared some slides for the introduction. If you have done it, if you have not done it, maybe that works, okay. As I'm first, I will take this just to introduce myself. My name is Lars Josten Calzada. I'm CCO for Berlin BESS developer. We have roughly 1.4 gigawatts BESS developed. Previously, I was head of solar business for 𝐿𝐴, a solar manufacturer for Solon, long time with Falsolar and with BeGreen. And looking backwards, in the 15 years of my career, I'm a little bit proud of these projects shown up there. One is the biggest floating in Germany, which was constructed last year. A joint venture in Greece, one of our first agri-PV that we installed, and even abroad, over 500 megawatts in the US. It was funny, a little bit from my background. So next is...
Oh, sorry. Excuse me. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Energy Box, for the invite. So I'm here representing Romania and the Black Sea region. I'm CFO and board member of Enexus Renewables, which is a vertically integrated EPC and project developer in the region. If you can switch. So Romania, as you've heard, I think also in the other panels, holds still significant development potential. In contrast to many Western European countries, there's demand for not just developments, but BESS integration and other renewable solutions. In Romania, we can see a very balanced power mix, and I think we'll discuss about this a little bit later, with a lot of renewables or almost green energy coming to the mix, and it will be interesting to see how this develops. In this context, we at Enexus work with international investors as a vertically integrated provider. And if you could move one slide. Thank you. To service them all across the value chain. So from the investment decision to the selection of projects to providing financing to, of course, building, connecting to the grids, O&M and commercial operations, so trading and merchant execution of the projects.
Okay, thanks for the introduction. Who's next? That's you.
Hello everyone. I'm Alessandro Berti. I'm one of the two managing directors of FRV here in Germany. I've been working in this industry for, I think, 22 years now, between Europe, Africa, and Latin America. And I'm in Germany now for 4 years. FRV is a global developer and IPP. We've been operating in more than 13 geographies right now. Pioneering solar projects and BESS. We were one of the first BESS developer and operators in the UK, following Australia and more recently Spain and Italy. And Germany was our missing part in the big, I would say, puzzle of Europe. We have more than 3 gigawatt in operations right now between BESS and solar worldwide. And the specificity of FRV is that we do develop, we finance, we build and operate. So we basically run the whole value chain of development, of basically being an IPP in this industry.
Thank you.
I try to be quick.
Yay, that is. Hi, I'm Vytenis currently heading 𝐷𝒂𝒏𝒆𝒍 solar company. We are delivering design of the solar battery engineering parks as well as the consultancy. as well as doing the owner's engineering services. In the course of the recent 4 years, we have delivered around 4.5 gigs of construction design for PV projects, as well as around half a gig of the battery, both co-located, both standalone. I guess this is one of the issues, and can you click as well, thanks. This is one of the issues that we want to face in today's panel discussion. So what should be the ratio, thinking of development of solar together with the battery storage? And previously, I've been 6 years within one of the Baltic utility companies, so running the business in energy supply for the commercial, for the residential households, as well as developing the electronic vehicles public charging network and other services, as well as being a small EPC company. Thank you, pleasure being here.
Okay. Next. You're welcome.
So I'm Rebecca. I'm very happy to be here again. The picture is from last year. It was already a pleasure to be here last year. Maybe 2 words about me. I have been in the renewable industry for about 15 years, mainly in the solar industry. In the past, I've built PV parks throughout Europe, and I joined EDF about 7 years ago, where I started to work more for battery storage. And this gave me a bit of a change of view, because before it was always important to me to put more gigawatts on the grid, to build more PV. But then looking at storage, it's more about how can we use the PV that we build, how can we make it more usable. I would like to put a bit of a focus from my side. It's so battery storage and C&I. So the batteries we build, they are for industrial customers here in Germany. And I think it gives a bit of a different notion than from a lot of things that we heard before, and that we will also talk. I think we talk more about big utility scale PV and battery, and I'm happy to provide some insight from the C&I world, which has its barriers for itself, but also its of course its interesting parts. So that about me. EDF is one of the biggest energy companies worldwide. In Germany, we do PV and battery storage for industrial companies, and we've been doing that since about 8 years. And yeah, I mean, these pictures, I think these are things that I might address during the panel. Why is it interesting for C&I customers to have a battery on their site? What benefits do they get from it? And some of the examples of the batteries we build.
Okay. Then we continue. Mark, you're next.
Yeah, Mark from Better Energy. I like what you just said about it has been a journey about putting as much PV on the grid as absolutely possible. And now, at least in Denmark, in 2024, we reached sort of the limit of how much electricity from PV actually is needed in the grid, and very, very different focus. And I think from a personal note, I've always been driven by the purpose of the green transition, and it's always been how can we beat fossil fuels, and we have to be cheap and reliable. The reliable part is yet to come, and then we also need to add the purpose. And I think it's a very interesting dialogue today with a very interesting panel, so I hope we can get the discussions going, because we have a big job ahead of us if we need to change this continent's demand and generation profile and really make a green transition, because there's a lot of headwinds and a lot of complexity. So that was just me.
Yeah. Next up is Daniel.
Yeah, thank you very much. I didn't do my homework, so I didn't present any slides today. So my name is Daniel Gaefke. I'm the CEO, global CEO for BayWa r.e. AG. 20 plus years in the industry, most of the time in the Asia-Pacific region, back in Europe, Munich, where's our home right now, for about a year now. We as BayWa r.e. are a global renewable energy company, 4,000 people globally right now. We last year brought about 1 gigawatt into construction, both wind, solar and battery. We have around about 10 gigawatt in operation globally right now, and we sold about 9.5 gigawatt of equipment via our solar distribution business globally. So I'm very happy to join this panel here today and to start the discussion with all of you.
Thank you. So last one missing, Christian.
Thank you. Well, I didn't bring a presentation, so I will compensate by standing up just for the introduction. Thank you for having me. I'm the CTO of Smart Energy Group. We are a Swiss-based private investment company, fully dedicated to renewable assets. We are developing mainly in Iberia, southern countries with a lot of sun. We also opened offices in the Middle East. And through an acquisition also Middle America, South America have a gigawatt of track history, but also gigawatts of pipeline. We've been a lot focusing also on the hydrogen side, which these days has been quite a challenge, but also obviously hybridization of our solar projects with batteries, and it's a big pleasure for me then to elaborate on that piece as well. Maybe to mention, I'm also one of the board of directors of Solar Power Europe, so I may also make some comments in this function.
Okay, now that you met us, we will start. And what we learn always here, everyone has gigawatts. So there's a reason for it, because there's a growing demand of electricity. And as Mark mentioned, the grid in Denmark, the capacity is already blocked, full. So how are you going to see, how are we going to swap around the growing demand and having the right capacity? Please be not so shy.
Well, okay. But it was especially on Denmark or in general?
I think we're taking it on a European perspective, but I think what's actually interesting about Denmark and the Danish market is that it's actually a hub. So it also includes the power generation from hydro in Norway, nuclear and wind in Sweden, a lot of wind from the North Sea, and a lot of PV and wind and other stuff from Europe. So it actually acts like a real interconnector. So it's a place where you can really see sort of the difference. And I think what I have learned is also the future demand curves and the future production curves. So the funny thing about what we do is that it actually has to balance, and it has to balance at all times. And I think that's the center of the challenge. How do we make it reliable? And what I sometimes fear is that despite all good intentions, it is not like we really have a European level set of thinking about how should this continent have its future energy infrastructure delivered at low cost, competitive with the rest of the world. And I think that's where we can step into all of the aspects of legislation, permitting, grid infrastructure, hardware, supply chain. And I think we have a very big task ahead of us. And I can say for ourselves, we miscalculated the effect. So entering late 2023, we had a review where we concluded that the build-out of solar was very delayed in Denmark. And we could also see the demand side. But even though we are delayed in the plans with the energy predictors and forecasters and the national forecasting, yet the effects of the power we put onto the grid were massively more than what we had anticipated. So basically the models didn't work.
Yeah, and in the short term, we already see that we have the bottleneck in the grid, but on the other side, we have Romania, who is aiming for more installation.
Absolutely, but then again, to be fair, let's say the second wave of renewables, to be correct, has started just in 2021, 2022 in Romania. So we're still installing. There's still grid capacities left for that. There's a lot of projects, about 2.5 gigs to be completed in 2025, 2026. Only of renewable capacities, mostly solar, but also wind. And now we are seeing more and more on installed capacities of solar being going towards hybridization. So clearly the trend that has taken Europe by storm with adding BESS capacities is happening here somewhat faster. So it's already built in many projects, or it's being added very soon after completion of initial projects. If I were to estimate, I think in Romania there's still room to install a few gigs at least. So the next 3 to 5 years will be ramping up this installation. The rhythm is about 850 megs a year being fed to the grid, up to 1 gig per year. So probably until 2030 we'll be still doing that, and then we will reach capacity. The question is, as with for many countries, and to build on Christian's point here, the capacities of the grids, how fast they are coming online, how fast they are increasing, how resilient they are. And also, I think some countries have innate, or let's say, capabilities. Some have more hydropower, some have more, and so in a way, also increasing the capacities of exports and, you know, more integration between countries of, I would not say an unified energy market, because that's maybe too far off in the future. But maybe that could help make more flexible the national markets and the European-wide one.
May I step a little step backwards and overall just to share the emotion? While coming to this conference, the expectation was that, hey, we will definitely hear some empowering news, so that how we will gather on and continue building European energy system from solar, from wind, from storage perspective. And what I heard today, and I quote, that standalone PV is dead. European solar manufacturing industry needs to be revitalized. Well, basically it's a walking dead. So the inspiration is not exactly at the right level so far. But at the same time, well, we are providing the consultancy and engineering services throughout the globe, and mostly focusing in Europe. We see very different situations in different markets. UK is doing fine. Ireland is increasing. However, some of the other markets are really struggling. And I would definitely meet the opinion of the colleague here that definitely European, as per history, as per overall different areas in economy, in geopolitics, in military, it's very fragmented. Again, we are very fragmented as well as energy production, grid connectivity, and so on. So I guess we have the components in place. We just need to put those components in the right places and agree on a simple set of rules how we approach them. Now, what do I mean? We have a clear surplus of energy in the Southern Europe and Northern Europe, and we have the deficit in the Central Europe, so mostly energy hubs. It's Germany, it's Czech, it's Austria. So how we should get that energy over, how we should manage the interconnectivity between the countries, and then how we should manage the interconnectivity inside the countries, like Germany, 16 lands. It's a tough one. So those are the main questions to address. And just to summarize the idea, I guess there are three main points of agreement to address. First of all, it's the business model. Are we relying on the business model that is based on commercial terms, or state support is needed? May that be CFDs. It's the legal framework. Same batteries. Do we call them a generator, a consumer, or perhaps a flexibility asset? So what's the legal position for the asset? And finally, technology. And technology is there. We just need to get the cost down to make it more investor comfortable.
Yeah, but what you are claiming for is another form of financial support. And I remember last November in Berlin, a conference where Kalle Remmers, a quite well-known guy, stood up and said, the EEG is dead, we don't need any subsidies anymore. And I think the whole industry evolved so much that we don't need subsidies anymore. We just need to rethink much, much quicker. We just always like to fall back to the banks that do the same financing. We need to come up with more clever ideas. And I agree with you that we will not see the rise of the panel manufacturing in Europe again, because mass production is done in Asia and they do it good. And we need to just be quicker and smarter and overcome this national thinking.
I'll just add the level of this subsidy thinking. So most likely there is two levels of where the governmental money may be spent. It's either on the interconnectivity level or going down to the micro level. So for example, originally I'm coming from Lithuania, and Lithuania just delayed a 700 offshore wind park just because the agreement with Germany to deliver the interconnectivity line of 2 to 6 gigs was basically delayed or even cancelled. The question is if even Germany needs that electricity. Well, I bet we do, but basically the deployment of renewable energy is being postponed or even cancelled because of we are missing the interconnectivity where the governmental subsidies may direct it.
No, I just want to add one thing. Solar is not dead. Thinking of selling electrons is dead. We've been living in a privileged world for many, many years in which basically we were financing projects with government-backed PPAs. Today, even companies are structured for that. They don't think about the fact that an electron, it's a commodity, and so it goes at the lower cost, at the lower price possible. We need to start selling services. We need to start selling storage. We need to start selling flexibility. We need to start selling thermal energy. We need to start selling things that are different. Otherwise, we will never get out of this rabbit hole. It's how it is. I mean, and the mentality must completely change. So I don't think that solar is dead. I don't think that, you know, this industry is dead the way we were thinking about it.
But this sounds a little bit that we need more flexibility, and this then goes in hand directly with batteries.
We do, but it's not only that, you know, like batteries, storage, thermal storage. There are many, many ways to do flexibility and to market your energy, basically.
You also said we need to make it smarter, and I think that's a very important point. I mean, putting gigawatts out there is one thing, but it's only one thing. And I mean, as said in the beginning, I'm preaching C&I things. And I think we need to put PV battery at the site where it's consumed. It needs to be produced where it's consumed, and it needs to be flexibilized, or I don't know what the verb is, but it needs to be there where the demand is. The demand needs to be also flexible. So I think that's such an important point in any energy system, especially in Germany, where we have lots of gigawatts already, but we need to see how we consume them, what we make of them, and I think that's such an important point in the whole picture.
Yeah.
First, I guess Christian, then Mark.
Okay. No, I like very much the comment made already today by Microsoft. Renewables are here to stay. And in fact, solar has been an amazing success story and is going to continue this way. We had the story also mentioned, 1 terawatt since the first commercial in 68 years, a second one in 2 years. We expect by 2030 globally 1 terawatt by year. If we go to Europe first now, the ambitions are in fact to go close to 1 terawatt, so I don't mention the gigawatts, I go to the terawatts, so sorry. But so far in Solar Power Europe, we always had underestimated what really was happening. So somehow putting these numbers out sounds like, oh, very bold, but it's actually happening. And what we have to do right now is to protect the success by positioning as the cheapest energy source, also in a more system-relevant environment way, which is possible thanks to batteries, thanks to some other mechanisms, demand side control, all the flexibility, etc., which we talk about. But this is very much possible because of the trajectory also on the battery side. We have this inflection point which is happening from the more residential side of batteries now to the side of utility scale. So suddenly we have all the measures in place to think big and have more solar coming in a way which is still the cheapest. And then we don't need so much, I mean, we need the right mechanism in place, but not really anymore this kind of subsidy topic. But the right measures are right. And maybe the last comment at Solar Power Europe, we have in fact changed our title. We call ourselves now not just solar, but it's about solar storage flexibility, Let's Flex. And we invite actually all the battery community to become also member in Solar Power Europe, because we want to work together and make this together a success.
Oh, I don't know where to start. There's so many interesting things. On the subsidy, no to subsidies, or at least subsidies in the wrong places. It's really something that distorts and makes it more complex. I want to go back to the C&I and sort of the centralized discussion, because I find that really interesting. Because is it easier to balance demand and production on a small scale local level, or is it easier to do in a larger pool? And the answer is probably a bit of both. But unless the production side starts taking responsibility for flexibility, sorry, the demand side starts taking responsibility for flexibility, then we're not going to get there. So we need flexibility. So when we see these hydrogen plants with a business case of they're producing 24/7 pure base load all the time in order to get the numbers work, that might not happen. But if there is a flexibility element in there, the same with data centers, maybe even the cooling systems in your local supermarket, all of that is really relevant, and there's a lot of technology gains to get there. But the complexity of these investments drives up the yields, and that means that we are really going to go through a crunch time now, because we're no longer cheaper if we also have to be reliable. So there's still a journey to go. I could continue.
Yeah, and as a moderator, I'm not only have the good part, I now like to play the bad part, because we agree all that renewable is the cheapest form of energy. But what we see in the last year, the return of the nuclear monster. Maybe, Daniel, that's even an impact there for you.
Didn't really wanted to talk about nuclear, but firstly I wanted to comment.
But it's an outlook for the decade.
Yeah, sure.
In the news.
Sorry, I didn't want to. No, firstly I wanted to also touch base what you said. I think we as a business, and I think and what also the colleagues here generally said, I think we need to become much smarter, and we have to adapt to the markets. I think we also have to stop hoping for big changes on a European level. We have to live in a much more complex world, and we see it every day. I mean, let's not start with Spain. I'm sure this topic has been covered today. So I think we need to be very much more smarter how we operate. We have much more complexity in our daily business decision. Again, the days of easy, quick gigawatts, we just find a grid connection, we have a government tariffs are long over. There's maybe 1 or 2 markets globally where we still have it. And this is just a reality. And that obviously makes the decision much more complex and leads to the fact that we are often then maybe also not the cheapest anymore, especially when we only look the complex total system cost, and we have to deal with that. Obviously, nuclear, coming back to that topic, I think it's a very specific country-related topic. It's also overhyped. I don't think that much will come out of it. Our colleagues in the US, obviously, it's a big hype right now with Trump being there, micro-reactors, all that. When you again go to the bottom of it, when you look at the cost, when you look at the complexity, and when you look at the fact that the local community probably not too happy to have that. They're not happy to have a wind farm, but they're probably even more so not happy when they get a nuclear power plant. I think it's very much overhyped. The example in the UK shows this also when you look at the cost overruns. So, but again, this all plays in there, and the political situation over the last 2 or 3 years is obviously often in a lot of countries not helping renewables right now. And this will probably also not change very likely over the coming years or two.
Very nicely commented. Just adding just 3 words on that. The nuclear monster, or some say, or the beauty, that's different views. In fact, it's happening. Yeah, we have 40 countries implementing 70 gigawatts right now of nuclear. So this is happening. I mean, the chance, and that's also an approach we are taking, is to make the ambassador that, in fact, all the arguments which you already said are there. Also, grid forming capacity, also there were for renewables. So the outage, which was now in Iberia, right away was grabbed by those supporting nuclear in Spain, for example. So we have to do the same and show very fast that we can do the same. And we saw very nice presentations about grid forming capabilities, the inertia which you can also compensate electronically. So all these kind of things, you need to be very proactive. Otherwise, the narrative stays too long. That's, I think, my 3 points on that.
A quick comment on nuclear. I would say, you know, I've changed my mind on that. I think not that nuclear technology as it is today is the right answer. I don't think we should stop researching, discussing nuclear. We should really see, can we improve the technology? Maybe you don't have to do it with uranium and other things, but put it in the big perspective. On this planet here, I think a lot of people going into renewable energy, they have the same dream, and that is that this planet some time in the future is powered by nature's sources. Basically, we stop burning stuff in order to get energy. But there maybe nuclear is a part of the solution overall, but we really need sort of the technology to continue evolving.
Okay.
So nuclear obviously is a popular topic, right? Full cost of ownership, that's another dimension that I would suggest to take into this discussion. So for example, if we take renewables on its own capex level still add a certain cost to the grid because of the flexibility need towards the grid. So we should consider that in the full capex consideration. However, on the nuclear, despite of all the total investment that has to be done and the returns are coming over the decades, let's not forget one thing. In the course of the previous 4 decades, there have been at least 3 incidents globally. What has been the cost of those incidents? And are we taking into account the cost of those incidents to the environment, to the social, to the economies? And if we take that into consideration, I think we are immediately forgetting any nuclear.
Yeah, I think that is a common meaning. But by looking at the watch, hopefully someone can give us a signal when we have to pass the mic. But what we learned so far, that we need to have new ideas. We need maybe to look in the Netherlands, where TenneT created flexibility pricing with their grid and enabled the bottleneck of grid capacity. This is, from my point of understanding, a way to deal with the flexibility of the new systems.
I know we've experienced in Denmark just sort of the simple notion of telling the DNO or TSOs, like saying, it is okay if we're curtailed from time to time. We don't have to be on all the time. We just need to be able to factor it into the business case. And they seem very surprised. So this just sometimes you can do it with simple, you know, measures. But I think in general, that flexibility should be an inspiration for all TSOs. Now the question is, in Germany, where there's, I think, is it 4 TSOs?
Yes.
Yeah. And then, then they probably had to do it together.
Yeah, and their business case is a regulated business case. So basically, this means a year before they submit their numbers and they get them approved. I think even there, we need some flexibility in the business model of the grid operators.
And I mean, in Germany, the complexity is we have 4 TSO zones, but then we have 900 DSOs. So we have 900 grid operators who all have their own structures, their own grid, and this makes it super complex in Germany. But again, I mean, we cannot shy the complexity. We have to deal with it. And I mean, coming back in what you said earlier about the if it's easier or more complicated to balance generation where it's consumed, it's definitely, I don't think it's easier, but I think again the consumption needs to be flexible as well. I think that's such an important point today, where the generation is flexible. You have to react in a flexible way to generation, and that's why again I think batteries, which we have mentioned a few times now, is such a topic. I mean, we can talk about nuclear and all, but I think really having a bigger rollout of batteries, be it large scale, be it C&I, be it even at homes, I think that's just such an important part of the solution.
Just a question on your question. We've been working in this industry with somebody always telling us about targets. No, we need to reach generation target of X, Y, Z. I've never seen nobody in Germany, especially, setting targets on flexibility on batteries. Of course, it's not a generating asset, but why nobody is calculating how many exactly batteries do we need? I've heard everything and the opposite of everything. Even the regulator is giving like those kind of discounts on the 𝐏𝐾𝐧, the big topic of today, giving basically indications on where they think should battery be located. But then if we speak with the TSO, they have a complete different kind of approach. So, I mean, I think that in Germany we are really working in a very, we're completely blindfolded on the real needs. I mean, and nobody's putting his head on that. We talk about nuclear, fantastic, but I think that nuclear is the best friend of renewables. First, because it's not going to happen, and second, because if we have the merit order kind of pricing method for the market, I mean, it will increase the price of the market, so everybody will benefit about that.
I couldn't agree more. I think, I mean, we have been seeing some changes, and I think the people in the panel who are active in Germany can contribute as well. I've seen some changes over the last 1-2 years on how batteries are perceived by the grid operators, by the public, by the government. I mean, before that, I mean, there was nothing in the regulations whatsoever, and I mean, batteries were totally ignored, and I've seen changes now recently, but...
Just one tweak. Yeah. We cannot afford 20 years to understand how a technology works.
Absolutely.
Like we did it with solar, and now we know how it works. Solar, solar creating problems to the grid. Oh, fantastic. I mean, like, we should have probably think it before. We cannot afford that today with batteries. We need to act more quickly. And we have the technology, we have the expertise, we have the history, we have everything that can help us with that.
Very short, some of the EU countries have installed some targets and others are following, and in fact in Brussels there is, as you said, a much better understanding of the importance. We heard about the difficulty to really calculate the need because it has so many factors, how much you really need depending on how you make the grid, how much you can control the demand and everything else. So somehow, in a way, it's good, I think, an incentive to go to certain targets. In the end, it's not even as important whether the target is right or wrong, but just to go the right direction of growth and giving the right incentives to really design the right systems at this very moment. And this should be supported by policy enabling these kinds of installation, reducing times for the projects, having the permitting included in other renewable projects in an easier way. So there are a lot of effects to, in fact, accelerate and making then these implementation easy and also bankable.
Yeah, I think I just want to also underline that I think that forward-looking planning and also realistic rollout planning, I think, is going to be very important for battery. And not that we do the same mistakes. And I see that in some markets globally right now, as we did in solar, that we have these 2-3 years of hypes where we build up an industry, we build up the system integrators, we have the teams ready, we put in gigawatts of batteries on the grid, and then we going back into a 3-4 year slump where nothing happening. And I think this is a risk we see, which I personally see. We saw it also in certain markets already around the world. And I think it's very important, again, to have a clear planning, forward-looking together with the government, together with the operators to ensure that it's really a sustainable ramp-up. And I think this is a little bit the risk we also have to keep in mind.
Yeah, let's hope by closing this discussion that our new chancellor, who might be elected right now, he is, congratulations, in the second try. I hope that the new government in Germany has this in mind and can play a good role for overall in Europe. And in the end, it comes to the politics. And if we sum this all up, then it's flexibility, what we need in the market, in the regulation, and especially in the politics. I have to say thank you. And I guess now we have the tea break.